Current Baki Hanma in the manga is much stronger compared to the most recent anime season fighting his father, and of course compared to his clash with Kengan facing Tokita Ohma, demonstrating new techniques and abilities, proving to everyone that he's worthy of being considered a strongest creature now. Likewise for Tokita Ohma, but to an even more insane degree, we didn't even get to see 10% of what Ohma can do. Both fighters have stronger techniques, more overpowered abilities to break down, alongside revealing how much stronger they get and what they're capable of now in their respective series. Let's begin with Baki. Naturally, there will be spoilers for both series, you have been warned. Throughout his fight with Ohma, we got to see a lot more of Baki's main abilities. For example, the 0.5 second punch at the start to knock him out, Bender the whip strike around the middle, the cockroach tackle which Ohma was able to deal with without any difficulty. The first time we've seen Baki use Zhao Li in the series, that being Kaku Kai's move, or the ultimate technique of Chinese martial arts that Yujiro may have copied during his battle with the old man. I guess Baki can also use it as expected. The Muck Punch again, this technique is something he copied from Katsumi in the early days of Baki during the Maximum Tournament. And speaking about copying abilities, he also did this with Ohma's ninja style technique Weeping Willow in the middle of the fight, which is absolutely wild, revealing to everyone who didn't know that Baki can indeed copy techniques, and to a pretty extreme degree. We got to see of course his demon back coming out, after only getting hit by Ohma once in his advance, which is a little wacky. It normally requires Baki to take a lot more damage, but just the essence of a crossover film like this. Apart from that, just various mixed martial art moves, strikes, kicks, his battle IQ being off the charts, being able to counter Ohma's indestructible, and just as a whole being a monster. Outside of the fight, we got to see Baki using his imagination training before facing Ohma, and then again at the end of the film after the battle, something that puts Baki at a big advantage in any rematch or if there's some prep time involved in a fight. As a reminder, during the middle of the Maximum Tournament, he performed this imagination training to pretty much outright surpass and destroy Retsu in the middle of the tournament. Additionally, there was one moment in Baki where he imagined he was fighting Yujiro Hanma, where the ogre in imagination form hit Baki so hard people thought an earthquake was occurring. Just take a second to think about that and how wild Baki's training has become. Now to go over some stuff he was missing from the film, the various dinosaur based stuff like the Triceratops fist he likes to use. Anything grappling or hold based we didn't really get a chance to see, mostly due to the nature of their fight. But Baki does have the ability to use things like the Tiger King. Endorphins is something Baki can activate at will in the early days of Baki. Some believe it's connected to his activation of the demon back, or it's related in some way, which is a possibility but nothing outright confirmed. It's also possible in this little moment before he unleashed the cockroach tackle was Baki unleashing his endorphins first, but again nothing confirmed. He has a few other moves that he's copied throughout the Baki series, for example the cord cutting technique of Shinogi Kosho that he can use, and a few others. I personally think it's pretty badass when Baki uses Aiki, and if we look at a specific moment in the film when Ohma used the Weeping Willow on Baki, and we cut to Hatsumi and Goki, the Aiki users, Baki is technically a master of Aiki as well, so it does make sense why he was able to copy that ability. And that's really everything we would have considering what version of Baki is fighting this film. The one I'm guessing is either right before or after the Yujiro fight, therefore I need to go over his abilities in the later arcs of the manga. Up next we have the Masashi arc. So throughout that he has two fights against the legendary samurai. During the first one we see Baki use a light speed jab to drop him. The panel in question has Baki state that his jab is faster than the speed of light, with the narrator at the bottom of the page supporting this by saying Baki starts the fight up again with a jab faster than light. How will Masashi react? And as we know, he was knocked out from this attack. But there's a few issues with this we need to consider. First, if you were to show this to someone, many would agree and go with the idea that Baki is indeed light speed. However, there's some important context to go over. This was the last panel of a chapter, with the very next one beginning with a flashback of Yujiro explaining stuff to young Baki, such as how people say stuff like fast as lightning, Mach Punch as being a way to describe their technique speed, and how these are nothing more than simple words, leading people with the context to just consider Baki's claim here as hyperbole, meaning it was just an exaggeration that shouldn't be taken serious. But consider this. In the flashback where we see Yujiro saying this, it seems like Baki is understanding what his father is saying, like many other things in the story. So why would he use this claim if it isn't true is a question to consider, particularly when we know the Mach Punch speed is true in early Baki, and they have feats even during the Musashi arc that are quite insane compared to any other point in the series, with ways to calculate speed not quite at light speed, but pretty high in the broader perspective. So of course, let me know down below what you think about this. Now during their second fight, we get to see Baki's evolution of his cockroach based attacks, resulting in this where he turned 3 blows into something many would view as only one, hitting the face, solar plexus and genitals simultaneously, which begins with Baki using the regular cockroach dash in combination with a flicker jab and some other stuff, resulting in Musashi to be rendered unconscious straight away, who as previously mentioned has some pretty wild speed feats and even some durability ones prior to this fight with Baki. And now the other main ability fully shown is this form of brain reading. It was initially revealed during Baki's fight with his father, but this is the fight where it's fully explained and we have outright confirmation that Baki is a master at using it. Musashi Miyamoto is the first to pull it out, saying immediately before the moment you moved, the signal I received from you allowed me to move in advance. Motobe proceeded to explain that he does read his opponent during a fight, but even he cannot reach into the brain, claiming that Baki and Miyamoto are having a brain reading battle here. They're reading for the moment before the mental decision to act is even made, with them using this ability to attack before the opponent's thoughts are even conscious. Don't know how to explain it fully, but pretty wild stuff going on. And actually, Kengan, particularly Ohma, has an ability similar to this that I'll be explaining later on. Now in the next manga, known as the Sumo arc, he has a little clash with Doppo Orochi to learn about sumo, nothing that serious, a clash with Sukune showing some dominance, the small sumo boy fight with Baki winning with his superior speed, and then he's fully called out by Sukune for the finale of the arc, where we truly see how much of a monster Baki has become. It begins with him being insanely relaxed, sleeping before the fight, and going out to the arena still wearing his regular clothing, showing how confident he is and how at this point Sukune isn't even a challenge for him. As a reminder, throughout the Sumo arc, Sukune was able to defeat Oliver around the start. He demonstrated his superiority over the other sumo fighters. He got kinda destroyed by Yujiro, but Tokugawa made the claim that Musashi would even respect Sukune. He had a very close fight with Jack, where Jack claimed victory and destroyed him in every way possible. But even with all of that, the biting cyborg showed respect towards Sukune and even said that he could have been defeated if he landed this blow without missing one of his fingers and all the other damage he had sustained. Coming back to Baki facing full power Sukune, saying he's gonna take Baki out in like 1 second instantly, who's already gone for a warm up for the fight, begins with him attacking straight away. 4 seconds later, Sukune is inches away from landing his powerful blow directly on Baki, who as a response has been slowly walking with his hands still in his pocket, releasing them to perform a wrist strike on Sukune's chin, landing before Sukune can, and use the slipping boxing technique via turning his head with Sukune's blow for the purpose of dispersing the impact of the attack, knocking out Sukune, taking no damage himself, and winning the fight within 9 seconds. This is the guy who's pretty much been the protagonist for the last 100 chapters, just got done like that at the end of the arc by Baki. I think everyone needs to respect Baki's power without a doubt, and that is pretty much the last time we've seen him fight. In the current Baki manga, known as Baki Rahen or the Jack arc, he has been called out by his brother for a future fight. Therefore, the long-awaited rematch between Baki Hanma and Jack Hanma, both stronger than they've ever been before, is something very hyped to look forward to in the Baki series. Now for Tokita Ohma, the protagonist of Kengan Asura. During the film, he demonstrated a few Nico-style techniques. These include Indestructible, Weeping Willow, some of his striking based attacks like Iron Breaker, and of course the Advance, one of his ultimate techniques, and that's it. Not really much even compared to the Kengan Asura anime, which does cut a lot of stuff from the manga. There's probably at the very least 50 more Nico style techniques. These cover a vast amount of situations. Various ones are used for grappling that again wasn't really a factor in this fight, but if it was, he would have been covered. Some as well are for sustainability in either long fights, if the opponent is using a weapon, if there are multiple, or there's going to be multiple fights in one day as an example. But there's one I wish we got to see, his other ultimate technique for the Nico style, that being the Demon's Bane, a move that involves using all of the Nico style cartas together, redirection for the purpose of redirecting the flow of power from your opponent, water to let the power pass through the body, flame to get that power in position and combine it with your own, and then adamantine to send it back to your opponent. This is a move that is stronger if your opponent uses a more powerful attack, as it combines your opponent's attack power with your own to send it back. A move that is formless in nature, meaning technically wherever you are hit, the whole thing can be sent back in really any way. For example, a big strike can be sent back as a kick. It was even used on Kuroki Gensai's Devil Lance, that is literally a piercing attack that goes through durability. On top of that, he can combine it with his advance to make it even more powerful and faster. Quite the overpowered ability. Now in the sequel series to Kengan Ashura, known as Kengan Omega, that is still ongoing with weekly chapters, Ohma is no longer nerfed due to his heart like he was in the entire Kengan Ashura story, but he doesn't use the advance as freely. We learned that he's a genetic clone of the connector Shen Wulong, particularly the Tiger Wulong within, one that is perhaps more brutal, meaning like Baki with his Hanma blood, he's probably gifted when it comes to fighting due to how he was created and of course his genetics. Over the time skip, he was able to learn some of the Kure clan techniques, the one known as Kure family tradition, allowing him to be better at ultra close quarters fighting with this cool looking move, this one as more so a counter, spinning with the impact of Lolong's attack to land his own, heaven shaking Supreme Fang, and then the most wild one, Kure family tradition copy. This allowed Ohma to copy how Lolong went limp in his joints after only seeing it once. Ohma does say he couldn't copy it perfectly, but the fact that this is a thing now in Kengan, truly highlighting how much stronger characters have gotten since the Kengan Ashura days and how OP some of the new techniques are. Apart from that, Ohma now uses his advance in quick blitzes more so. This is in combination with his Nico style attacks for the purpose of catching his opponent off guard with the quick speed and power increase, even using his master's Nico style attack with the advance fully active for this monstrous blow. On top of all that, Ohma can now use pre-initiative. This is the ability mentioned before that is similar to the brain reading in Baki. So in Kengan, it begins with foresight, which allows you to infer your opponent's next move with subtle motions. This can be trained to a certain number of moves ahead. Next is things like post initiative, which is countering your opponent after they move. Counter initiative, discerning the moment your opponent will start moving and striking first by moving at the same time. And then the pinnacle of foresight for what we know so far, pre-initiative, reading your opponent's inception of intent and striking before they move move, or even dodging before they move. Coming down to once again degrees of mastery, whoever can predict the furthest. There's also other versions that Ohma may be learning in the future, while he also demonstrated his ability to counter it, being able to hide the Inception in his opponent's blind spot, at least against someone who isn't a true master of it yet. Both series are pretty complicated when explaining this ability. If you take the Baki version hyper literal, meaning it is actually brain reading, this would naturally be the superior version, but all of this depends on interpretation for both series. Other notable things for Ohma to mention is after being adjusted by Shenmue Long once with how he strikes, he was able to do this casually, and currently in the story he's training in the mountains with Kuroki Gensai for the purpose of fighting Shenmue Long in the future, who is beyond anything else we've ever seen in Kengan. I have a whole video going over his matchup with Yujiro, and I will be working on a dedicated one for him explaining new stuff we've learnt. Therefore, make sure you're subscribed for more fighting, anime and manga content. So with this said, it looks like Ohma is about to get much stronger. Baki within the current Baki manga is going to have his rematch against Jack. Jack is much stronger than ever before, continuing to grow. I think it's going to be pretty badass, but leading into the future, I don't think Baki is going to grow in power that much more, at least compared to Ohma, considering the wall currently in the way of him and all the other Kengan top tiers. So the question we have now, which one is currently stronger? If we're looking at feats and pretty much this regular scaling for both series, the highest end possible for Baki, using the fact that he's above the power of Yujiro that he used to stop an earthquake casually, especially currently in the story, as that occurred against a 13-year-old Baki before pretty much all the main events of the Baki series, and all the other earthquake related moments making that consistent that we've seen throughout the story. Baki at a raw strength level is above anything in Kengan. Yes, we have characters shaking mountains such as Waka, which Ohma with Ninja style techniques and via the use of Demon's Bane should scale above, and the whole narrative for Shenmue Long, but we're just lacking in specific feats. So raw power wise, Baki is still physically stronger. Speed wise, again we have better arguments for the Baki series using certain things, and the fact that Baki is regarded on Yujiro's level, or at the very least is able to fight him to a pretty close degree. Yes, he's not stronger, but he's able to fight his father, which is of course good for him in any scaling department. The brain reading ability versus Ohma's pre-initiative could really go any way. The highest end with what explained does go to Baki, but this minuses one another, it's neutral. Ohma, I would say, has pretty overpowered abilities via his Demon's Bane, which could give him a way to defeat Baki, but as it currently sits, my bet would still be on Baki being the stronger fighter, just looking at the scaling and what he's done in his respective series. But looking at what's going on in both stories, the Kengan universe is growing in power to a much faster rate, mostly due to the introduction of Shenmue Long, of course. Additionally, the whole copy stuff both characters can do, I don't really think this will be a major factor that determines the winner, and I wouldn't be surprised if we never see it again in Kengan, and Baki doesn't really need to use it anymore in his own series. There you go, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Shout out to GamerSupps. You can get a 10% discount with the link in the description. The products, I showed some throughout the video. Shout out to the members, these absolute mad lads. Thanks for showing additional support. But that's it guys, peace.